Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Andrew Parker Show. This is episode 497. And thank you very much for joining us to talk politics, Israel, and the law once again. I want to talk today about the geopolitics in the Middle East, about the enormous changes that I don't think are being discussed enough. And what we have at our fingertips, we can feel it, we can just reach it, soon maybe grasp it. And that is through the work of Donald Trump against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have the potential for peace in the region. We have the potential for treaties to be signed, for countries who had never had cooperative arrangements with one another before to soon have them, to be working hand in hand on economics, cultural exchanges, etc. And this could include, once Iran and the Islamist regime, the mullahs, are removed and are no longer in power, this can include Iran, as the people of Iran want this kind of freedom and want to turn toward the West. And, you know, if I can dream, I can think about the fact that once that occurs, once these dominoes start to fall, and let me describe that a little bit more before I get into the dream. If Iran is no longer meddling, worse than meddling, is no longer funding death, atrocities, and destruction, terrorism around the world, but mostly in the Middle East, through Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran, and all of the terrorist activities through Europe and other parts of the world that they funded and planned, and some indeed carried out. If they no longer are in play, you could see quite easily, number one, Hamas would be disarmed and would be destroyed, and Gaza would be built for the Palestinian people who want to live there. The Palestinian Authority will be isolated to the point where they can't continue to say, no, we won't take our own country, because that's what has happened. If you know the history, and there's been so many lies told about it, you may not know it. 6 times the state of Israel offered land for peace, the same type of deal and different expansion, of course, and different land, but the same type of deal that Israel has had with Egypt for many decades, more than 40 years. And that sort of deal can hold. And it would with the Palestinians, so long as there weren't terrorist meddlers and so long as they got new leadership. But setting that aside, without Iran and meddling, Hamas would be gone, Hezbollah would be gone, the Houthis would be gone. With Hezbollah gone, Lebanon would have its country back and could rebuild into the Riviera of the Middle East on the Mediterranean. Syria as well could enter into a deal with Israel. Lebanon, a deal with Israel. The Saudis, a deal with Israel. The Iraqis, a deal with Israel without the Iranian meddling. All of those things, one-time complete pipe dreams. But today, within reach, we can almost feel it. And if that happens, a Palestinian state will follow. Of course, we have to end the indoctrination of hate being inculcated in Palestinian children in their schools, TV, all of the messaging that they receive. We'll have to change that. But with those countries amazingly now being able to and wanting to do a deal without Hamas, Hezbollah, etc., any longer having authority or power, it would be an entire change in the geopolitics of the Middle East. And Iran would be governed by a free society. Citizenry that can vote, that can decide how it wishes to govern itself. And if all of that happens, the dream is that you have an economic boom in the Middle East, and that you have a reformation of the Islamic religion, like there was a reformation of Christianity. That it's not taught that death and destruction is favored because it's going to bring great things in the afterlife. No. If there is then this Islamic reformation, you will not have the hue and cry of death to America, death to Israel, death to the West. You will have freedom of religion, freedom of thought, and a clear understanding by all Muslims, even Islamists and radical fundamentalists, an understanding that others think differently. And they're allowed to do that in a free and open society. Yes, it's a dream. But it all starts with the destruction of what happened in 1979 and 47 years ago being rolled back through the elimination, and it's probably going to have to be done militarily, of the leadership in Iran. And Islamic rule governed by these mullahs, the Ayatollahs, the IRGC, and it will open up not just economic boon in the Middle East, but across the world. So that's what my hope is. I think it's a dream. Others think it's a pipe dream and crazy. But that's my hope if Donald J. Trump gets it right. But everything he's been doing over the last several months, he's, in my judgment, not getting it right. Indeed, getting it quite wrong. and somewhat looks like a fool, quite frankly, in being outmaneuvered repeatedly by the Iranians, who have no intention of ever doing a deal that is living up to a deal. They might do it for a few days, maybe for a few weeks, maybe for a few months, but they will never intend on living up to a deal. And if we continue to try to check and see and verify and give them a chance, sort of thing, we've given far too many chances to these Islamists, and now and we should know better by now. But, frankly, we don't. Donald Trump has not shown that he does. And the electorate in the United States, in electing those who fully support the hatred of Iran, fully support radical Islamic ideas, support the hate for Jews and the hate for Israel. And we're electing them here in the Democratic Party in the United States. Amazing. It really is. But I'm not intending to talk much about, on this episode at least, about the Democratic Party. You can go to episodes 495, 496 and get plenty of that. And I'll have a bit more of it coming up in the next couple of episodes. It's interesting. The hatred of Bibi Netanyahu is, I don't really understand it. Is it that he's too warlike? He jumps to war too quickly? How many Jews have to die before you can jump to war? How much Jewish blood runs in the street? Innocent civilians, kids at kindergarten, kids graduating high school, going into the IDF, being killed, but civilians, women and children, the elderly, some survivors of the Holocaust who moved to Israel decades ago, lived through all of that, but now are murdered in the one and only Jewish state. How many have to die before Bibi Netanyahu is allowed to defend his people with force? When a unilateral attack, such as occurred on October 7th. But the hatred and dislike for Bibi went back well beyond and before October 7th. Why is that? Because he stood in the way of a two-state solution? First off, that's not accurate. As he, along with a number of other prime ministers of the state of Israel, offered a two-state solution a number of times only to be rejected. And, that's the truth of it. Indeed, Bill Clinton said Yasser Arafat was just ultimately was a blatant liar. Once again, a leader of the Palestinian people, just a blatant liar. And Yasser Arafat caused the death of so many, as I now have called the U.S. electorate, having the Democratic Party endorse the Yasser Arafat of the U.S. and the U.S. Senate, Abdul el-Sayed. Stands for pretty much the same things that Arafat, the murderer, stood for. So is it that Bibi stood in the way of not wanting to create another terrorist state, a Palestinian state that would launch, like Hamas did on October 7, horrific hatred toward the state of Israel? What, that he wouldn't reward that type of conduct, of taking hostages? Is that why they hate Bibi? What, because he allowed the building of settlements when the Palestinians repeatedly refused to negotiate with the Israelis? No, I don't think the hate for Bibi Netanyahu is defensible. Like him or not, want to vote for him or not, that hate is over the top, particularly when we're talking about the Winston Churchill of our time, which is what I would say he is. They stood alone as they fought in response to October 7th. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans when they bombed Iran, and have stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans since the war with Iran has started, and stand ready to do the same. There is no other ally in the world that has done this, that has stood by the United States without question and unconditionally has done so, putting its young kids in harm's way. And so a great ally they are, a great support for the United States they are, not just militarily, but as it relates to intelligence, as it relates to economic security and growth, innovation, environmental improvements, all of it. Israel supports the United States and brings to the U.S. so much in that regard. We talk about the movement that has happened and the attacks on Israel and the unwarranted nature of them. There was an article that I was provided and read, and it really is quite good. It's not all that long. It's from the desk of Rabbi Pinchas Alush in Arizona. He is a wonderful rabbi, and he wrote New York City mayor's latest attack, Judaism's timeless response. And this was, about a week before Abdul El-Sayed was elected as the endorsed Democratic candidate for the United States Senate in Michigan. This is not going to be the last of the Jew haters who are going to be walking the halls of Congress. There are several in the House. There are very few in the Senate, but that is going to grow. And it's starting to look like Nazi Germany. I don't think this is hyperbole. I think we've been asleep too long, and we need to start calling things as they are. It is beginning to look like Nazi Germany in 1930 and the early 30s. It's starting.
A record of success second to none. Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm, the numbers tell the story. The last 5 cases our lawyers have brought to trial have resulted in million and multi-million-dollar verdicts for our plaintiff clients and 0 defense verdicts for our defense clients. Put simply, we try cases and we win cases. Hi, I'm Andrew Parker. At Parker Daniels Keyboard, we take our work personally and we go the extra mile. That is why some of the biggest law firms, locally and nationally, send cases to us to handle when they can't. If you have a challenging and critically important business or personal legal dispute that must be favorably resolved, whether regarding a contract matter, a business divorce, a real estate dispute, an employment dispute, a civil rights or defamation matter, plain talk, if it's a big deal, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com.
And the Jewish people, first and foremost, need to wake up. They vote Democrat 75% of the time. And the Democratic Party is lost. And there isn't a leader that's fighting back other than John Fetterman. And he has no help. He has no one coming to his aid. In fact, they're hiding. The best of them are hiding. The rest of them are supporting the haters, the anti-Semites. I don't like using that word because it gets used so often. It gets watered down. But unfortunately, there's no other way to describe it. These are people who put standards on the state of Israel that are not applied to anywhere else. And they call for the destruction of the state of Israel, for the non-recognition of it. They claim that it's a colonialist state, even though Jews are the indigenous people of that land and Palestinians never even existed. Jews have lived there from thousands of years ago consistently to today. Palestinians didn't even exist then. Jews are willing to live side by side. Palestinians are not. It's death for the Jews. That's what they call the call on. So Rabbi Alush is talking about New York City. And he says the mayor of New York City used his enormous public platform, which he certainly has, to spew his disgusting Jew hatred and intolerable anti-Semitism by calling for the arrest of Israel's Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. This is what I was talking about previously. Mamdani he's an anti-Semite, and he speaks about it, and he's because it's become so normalized, he's able to openly speak about it. He doesn't even hide it. But nor does Abdul El-Sayed or Hassan Piker or some of the others who have run for lesser offices. But the mayor of the largest city in the United States, and potentially soon to be the U.S. senator of one of the largest states in the United States, the state of Michigan, are all openly Jew haters, anti-Zionists. No, Jews, you can't have your own state, the one and only state that has been your ancestral homeland forever. And in fact, we need to destroy you. So he talks about, the spewing of his Jew hatred. Rabbi Alush goes on to say, at a time when Jewish blood has scarcely dried from the streets of October 7, and when anti-Semitism has reached levels unseen in generations, this is much more than political theater. He wrote this before El-Sayed got elected, with the Democratic banner around his shoulders now. The Democratic Party fully supporting the spewing hatred of Jews. The Democratic Party wrapping their name around it. You know what the Republican Party did when Tom Massey was spewing such hatred? They booted him out. They voted him out. Done. Not the Democratic Party, no who. And these leaders continue to hide or openly support. Like Ilhan Omar. Worse yet, Tina Smith. Horrific. I go on. Rabbi Alush. It is a profound moral failure. Remember, this is not mere political theater. It's a profound moral failure that must be condemned and eradicated to single out the democratically elected leader of the world's only Jewish state while remaining so conspicuously silent about the deadliest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust is to turn justice on its head. So you see, the attacks on Israel, the attacks on the Prime Minister of Israel, while being totally silent as it relates to Hamas, Hezbollah, the Jew killers. This is open Jew hatred. This is openly supporting the KKK in their robes and hoods to murder blacks. Equivalently, obviously, they're not doing that. They're not saying that. Boy, if anyone did publicly come out and support that, like El Sayed, they'd be thrown in jail. Certainly would be ostracized. Certainly wouldn't get 1% of the vote. The Democratic Party, though, now supports that because that's effectively what it is. Prime Minister Netanyahu is leading one of the most morally justified wars of our generation, a war forced upon Israel by a terrorist organization that glorifies murder and uses civilians as human shields. This is what I talked about in the previous episode. So he's fighting that war, and the world is condemning him. A war that was brought on Israel by one of the worst days in Jewish life. Horrific. The atrocities are unspeakable. Many say unseeable. Again, to accuse Israel of crimes while ignoring Hamas's barbarity is to revive one of history's oldest blood libels. This is simply another incarnation of anti-Semitism, which goes back thousands of years. Hundreds of years ago, you have Jews in Spain convert or die, be exiled. Things are better, but not much in Spain today. You would think their hatred would be gone against a people of such a small population. Going on with Rabbi Alush, these accusations are not directed only at one man in Jerusalem. They implicate every heroic young man and woman serving in the IDF, including my own son, he's talking now, Rabbi Alush, of whom I could not be more proud, who risk their lives every day to defend our people and the free world. The free world is who Israel is fighting for, and if you don't get it, my Christian neighbors, you need to get it. The actions are in defense of the free world, as Israel is at the point of the spear. Christians are infidels just as well. And beware. Rabbi Alush goes on, and where is his outrage for Iran's, he's talking now about Mamdani, where is his outrage of Iran's political executions, for Christians slaughtered in Nigeria, or for the Uyghurs imprisoned in China? He never says a word about these. A man who finds endless yet distorted words only when the subject is the Jewish state is pure and simple an anti-Semite. Just yesterday, this is Alush writing a couple of weeks ago, just yesterday on Tisha B'Av, we, the Jewish people, mourned the destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem, destroyed, sacked, along with the many other national tragedies that occurred on this fateful day. But today, everything changes. We rise to welcome Shabbat, named for the opening words of Isaiah's magnificent prophecy, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, comfort, comfort my people. And Rabbi Alush goes on to say, yet Nachamu is not merely Hashem's, God's, promise to comfort us. It is his call for us to become partners in bringing that comfort to the world. So the Jewish people continue to believe that is our calling. As Isaiah immediately continues, a voice cries out, prepare the way of God. Redemption is not something we passively await. It is something we actively prepare. And the best, he writes, Rabbi Alush from Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, and the best and perhaps only way to answer this call and prepare the way of God is by confronting evil with moral clarity, words of darkness with actions of light, and hatred with an even greater measure of Jewish pride and purpose. Now, that's what I intend to do. I hope to do every episode. Whether I've got 100 listeners or 10,000 listeners, I will press forward, and I hope you will join me in pressing forward in the face of this darkness to bring light, in pressing forward in the face of evil and a morally bankrupt process and decisions and educational system, and bring moral clarity. Confront it head on with moral clarity. Rabbi Alush goes on to say, no, we cannot allow anti-Semites to define our identity and Jew hatred to consume our attention. Instead, we must become stronger. We must deepen our Torah learning. We must perform more mitzvot, which are requirements and merits. We must strengthen our families and communities with unconditional love. We must stand proudly with Israel, and we must increase our acts of goodness and kindness. In the face of all this, that is Rabbi Alush's message. And it's a difficult one, as the haters are out in force. There are a number of them on the far right. Most of these are pundits, not elected officials. The elected officials who fall into that category get drummed out. Stephen King of Iowa several years ago for racist, anti-black racist comments. Thomas Massey, as I mentioned earlier, drummed out, thrown out of the party. No, you are not our endorsed candidate. We vote you out because you don't stand for what we stand for. Your moral compass is broken. What do the Democrats do? The Democratic Party, which has been moving this direction for at least 8 years, maybe 10, is now full-throated supporters of anti-Semites. They wrap their banner around them as their endorsed candidates. At city councils, county commissioners, prosecutors, regents at large public institutions, state legislators, but now getting having runs like in Wisconsin for governor, House of Representatives in Congress, and as we know, the U.S. Senate. It's dangerous, but it's upon us. The question is how we deal with it, how we react to it. I thank you very much for joining me on this episode of the Andrew Parker Show. I say once again, there is hope. Donald Trump needs to end the regime in Iran. He needs to bring through that process, because it's the only one that'll work, Iran into the Council of Nations. And from there, end their support for their proxies and bring peace to a number of countries around the Middle East, an axis of peace. And we need to hope for it and demand it. And then we need to stand up to the new Democratic Party, a party of hate. And in an upcoming episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more to my Jewish friends and what they're doing, what they're thinking, and how we might respond to this direct, unprecedented assault on the Jewish people in the free world and in the governments of free countries, including now the United States. Until then, I say to you once again, be kind to your neighbor. For more Smart Plain Talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard.
Did your employer make you sign a promissory note when joining the company, and now you want to leave, but you're afraid your firm will pursue you personally for that debt? This is Jesse Keyboard from the law firm Parker Daniels Keyboard. I recently represented a client who had signed such a note, and I was able to get them out of their $500,000 debt to their company, which allowed them the freedom to exit a bad employment situation and enter a much better one. Meeting our clients' objectives is our focus at Parker Daniels Keyboard, and in this regard, we win. Our experienced trial team of lawyers at Parker Daniels Keyboard have secured major victories in state and federal courts across the country and through arbitration. We have the legal expertise in all types of business disputes, labor and employment matters, real estate matters, shareholder disputes, financial transactions, security issues, and appeals. For wise counsel, winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, a premier litigation law firm that provides efficient, aggressive, and innovative solutions to complex legal problems. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com.